learning and producer responsibility. Triple E's really asserting itself in terms of floor work here, but we're good. Okay, so Alexis, we're going to go to you on Senate Bill 286.
Senate Bill 286, Department of Veterans Affairs, Burial and State Veteran Cemetery Spouses. This bill is drafted requires the Maryland Department of Veterans Affairs to bury spouses in the same plot as a military veteran without charge, and requires the Department of Veterans Affairs to provide a grave liner for an eligible spouse. This term is defined to prohibit the spouse from remarrying, and this provision of the grave liner for the eligible spouse is to be at no cost. There are a couple of amendments, the most significant of which comes from the sponsor, and then a slate of co-sponsor amendments. So the amendments from the sponsor conform the definition of eligible spouse to federal laws. So now that prohibition against remarriage is removed, requires the Department of Veterans Affairs to issue a grave liner without charge to either the veteran, the spouse, or the dependent. Under current law, the family or the estate pays for the latter two. The bill requires either the burial of the veteran spouse or the dependent, instead of requiring the veteran and either the spouse or the dependent. The amendments add Senator Brooks as a second co-sponsor, and Senator Carrozza and Senator Hester have separate co-sponsor amendments that are also included.
Does anybody else want to be added on to the bill as a co-sponsor? Raise your hand.
Senator Augustine.
Okay, I'll go on.
Senator Feldman. Senator Lewis Young.
Kagan.
Senator Kagan. Okay. Yes, you are. Thanks for the catch.
Okay, Senator Simon-Air, do you want to add anything to what Alexis described before we take it up?
Yeah, I just wanted to thank Senator Brooks. Great minds think alike, and we put our heads together. Also wanted to thank the governor. He worked to get the 1.25 million for this, and very supportive of it. So. And we have made it, the amendments have been worked out with the department and with the House, so it's all consensus.
Okay, so we've got those amendments plus all the co-sponsorship amendments. So all in favor of those amendments collectively, raise your hand. All opposed, the amendments carry. So we've got the bill 286 as amended before us. Is there a motion, Senator Simon-Air? Senator Simon-Air, Senator Brooks is second. All in favor, Senate Bill 286 is amended, raise your hand. Okay, that bill carries. Next up, April, back to Senator Bailey's bill that we had last time and Senator Simon-Air had held. And why don't you refresh everybody's memory about the bill?
Are we skipping 327?
Okay, I must have a different list then. Okay, I might have a list. My list doesn't even have 327 on it.
It's right. This one's happening.
Sorry about that. Okay, I have a slightly different list. Okay, I apologize. 327, back to you, April.
Okay. So just as a reminder, this is the bill establishing the Wildlife Conservation Education and Outreach Program within the Department of Natural Resources. This bill was on the voting list yesterday and was held. There is an amendment in your packet on page 6 or reprint. This reflects, again, the amendments the committee adopted yesterday from Senator Elfreth. The adopted amendments strike language in the bill authorizing the Sunday hunting of waterfowl, but add language prohibiting the hunting of captive raised waterfowl on Sundays in certain regulated shooting grounds. Also increase the fees for waterfowl outfitters and waterfowl hunting licenses. Strike language requiring deer overpopulation plans to include the feasibility of hunting on state land on Sunday, and adds language requiring a portion of federal funding increases attributable to the license fees in the bill to be used for the creation and funding of a farmer cost share program for planting buffer crops. The idea was raised yesterday of striking the prohibition on Sunday use of regulating shooting grounds. But no vote was taken. So just to sort of bring us back up to speed. There was also some question yesterday about what the House was moving. The House is essentially moving these amendments, but does not include, again, that prohibition on the use of the regulated shooting grounds on Sundays, and also does not include the license increase for the outfitters. Finally, just there is another amendment in your bill packet on page 19, or being offered by Senator Hester. Amendments add a study requirement requiring the department to look at equitable access to hunting and issues around increasing hunting opportunities.
Okay, so we have two separate, we've got Elfreth amendments and then Hester amendment question. Oh, okay.
The
Yeah.
Elfreth amendments are adopted. The question would be if we wanted to amend the amendments in any way.
Okay, okay. Correct. The discussions, Sarah Augustine.
Just start by just striking of the commercial hunting of waterfowl on Sundays portion of the amendment. I would move that we strike that. Is that the right way to say that?
The regulated shooting areas.
Yep,
yeah.
the regulated shooting areas.
Clarifying.
Right, so this would be in, if you are in the reprint, if you're on page 17 of your voting packet, the amendments, the Elfreth amendments had added language saying the department may not authorize the hunting of captive raised waterfowl on Sundays in a regulated shooting ground that charges a fee to shoot or hunt captive raised waterfowl. Senator Augustine, if I can rephrase his amendment suggestion, would be to strike this provision from the bill, from the
I
amendment.
can explain. Well, actually, there wasn't a second, so there isn't. Okay. I can explain. So my understanding of kind of like broadly speaking, sort of like the agreement was that we were going to leave sort of the Sunday hunting alone. And so that this sort of dealt with that. And so I felt like, you know, sort of just in keeping with that it just made sense to pull this provision out, which is in keeping with the way that it is in the House.
So
That's my rationale.
it's Senator Gallion.
And so the only other part, it would be the guides and outfitters are getting a fee increase, which was not in our original hearing and is not in what the House just passed unanimously, correct? So I would like us to pass exactly in the form that the House did, line it up exactly, and I think it would make our would make this go smooth right on the way through, is what I'm kind of thinking.
So,
Yeah, Senator Augustine, then we'll go. to
well,
Senator
I mean,
Secretary.
just, you know, first we do have, you know, my amendment, I'm sorry, my, whatever you want to call it, an amendment,
Yeah.
an amendment to the amendment. And so, you know, I would just, we've kind of already separated them. So I would
I would say
wanna-
the issue you raised should be dealt with
It would be
separately.
after, that's all I'm
Right,
saying.
so-
But the first one for my rationale was, like, we said we weren't gonna do the changing of the Sunday hunting things. And so that's my rationale for that.
Okay, Senator Hester, just on that issue, let's keep things separate from the issue raised by Senator Gallion. Did you say you second what I perceived to essentially be a motion to take
She
that
did
language
say
out?
that.
Okay, so that's one. And Senator Kagan will question. Oh, I'm sorry, is your light's not on?
I'm confused. So does your amendment allow the captive to remain on Sunday, but not the wildlife?
My amendment simply strikes the added language which created the prohibition that changed Sunday hunting. Basically, that's what my amendment did. And so that's where, if I'm being clear, nothing else. So before there was like as I understood it, there was sort of like agreement. We were just not gonna do anything with Sunday hunting. And I'm just putting it back into sort of like current law. That's what it does.
And specifically, Senator Lewis Young, again, on the reprint, very specific language. I think it's, you know, pretty straightforward, is this on page 17, bold, about the department may not authorize the hunting. That to that provision specifically is being stricken under this proposed amendment.
Yeah.
If you read that,
You can vote for it or not.
yeah. Yes, Senator Kagan.
Thank you. Question for April. this amendment is offered by the sponsor of the bill, correct?
The original amendment.
The original amendment, not the amendment to the amendment, but the original amendment, including the language on page 17 under 3 sub 2. And that was from the sponsor of the bill. And that was worked out in consultation with other partners, and that was her compromise language.
Okay.
Correct.
But
I
I've
just want to
since
check with
spoke
April.
with her.
Hold on. I just want to check with April. Okay.
I
so-
don't know the context of the
Okay,
amendments being worked
But
out.
this is her amendment, and she hasn't indicated to you that this is, okay.
Okay,
So I'm going to speak against Senator Augustine's amendment to the amendment. For a lot of reasons. So first off, there's the deference to the sponsor who has been working with a lot of interested parties. Second, I don't love this kind of hunting. Third, it is a change to current law. And fourth, the $700, it creates a financial disparity that I find distasteful. And no pun intended that you eat these things afterwards. But so I'll be voting no on the amendment to the amendment.
but I will just footnote, Senators Augustine and myself did talk to the sponsor, and she's okay with deleting this language. But that may not be relevant, but since you cited that, we did speak to her on the floor today. But that said, I just first come context. Senator Carozza.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. If it's okay, because I missed the debate or the voting yesterday where some of the new amendments came on board. And so if you wouldn't mind, I was just going to ask April, just want to walk through. You've got migratory bird hunting, you've got captive raised waterfowl, and then you've got non-migratory Sunday hunting. So can you walk me through what we did yesterday as far as removing what I thought was migratory bird hunting on Sundays, which then does not impact anything else, any of those other local counties that have Sunday hunting for non-migratory birds, separate issue. And then what this does. So I'm just trying to bring myself up to speed so I know exactly what this language allows and doesn't allow.
So the original bill would have authorized the Sunday hunting of migratory waterfowl across the board, which is currently across the board prohibited. The Senator Elfreth offered amendments that would take that part out of the bill. This was yesterday. Those were voted on, would take that part out of the bill. So it would maintain the current prohibition on Sunday hunting of migratory game birds. Nothing in the bill either originally introduced or as amended affects Sunday hunting for any other deer, turkey, whatever else. But the other thing that her amendments did, and again, the committee adopted these as a package, but then with the idea of holding it and coming back to it, was add a new prohibition on Sunday hunting on these regulated shooting areas where they're using captive raised waterfowl. That is currently allowed across the board on Sundays. So Senator Augustine has made a motion to take that part out. So they would not become part of the committee amendments. So again, it would maintain under Senator Augustine's motion, maintain the status quo on Sunday hunting as it is in the current law across the board.
I had you until you went to, I understood the part about the amendment that took away or removed the bill, in the original bill, the migratory bird hunting on Sundays. I didn't follow you on that next piece that was in the Senator Elfreth's amendments that were passed yesterday.
Okay, so currently there are these things called regulated shooting areas, which are sort of private land where, and this is dealing specifically with these regulated shooting areas that use captive raised waterfowl. So they farm raised ducks essentially. And then people can pay to come out and they release the ducks into the air and people can shoot at them. Right now, that is authorized on Sundays in the state because those are not migratory game birds. They are captive raised waterfowl. That's the current law, is you can do that on Sundays. Senator Elfreth's bill, so we're going to give it parity with the migratory waterfowl. You can't do that on Sundays. You can't use those regulated shooting areas. Senator Augustine is, that is the current language in the amendments as adopted by the committee that we're now discussing taking out.
And then Senator Augustine's amendment just takes everything back to where we were before the migratory bird Sunday hunting was introduced.
Yes.
Is that correct?
It's maintaining the current status quo on that topic for purposes.
What the House did. And trying to really keep the other parts of the bill going and not have the bill get. Who said that?
Okay, Vice Chair Kagan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There was some sentiment that we wanted sort of make this, what's the word I'm looking for? The, compliant, it's identical to the House version. And the memo that Senator Elfrith sent today was the number of differences that are in this bill that are not the same as the House version. So whether or not we take the Augustine amendment, we are still reporting something different. So I just want to make sure everyone knows that this is not the magic wand that ends up with the perfect bill that won't need to go back and forth and maybe a conference and all that.
Yeah, no, Senator, that's why, but if you recall, that's what I said, because that's what basically what Senator Gallion was talking about. That's what I said, listen, I made this, let's deal with this one, and then we probably have others
Well,
that we're gonna have to deal with.
correct. So we're going to take, he raises the issue, fees, et cetera. We're going to keep that as a separate issue, a separate vote. This is specifically on this provision and the motion to essentially amend our amendment from yesterday to strike that particular language. So that's the only thing in front of us, everybody, just to be clear. Yes, Senator Cartson. Okay, well, you can, when you come back, you can cast a vote for this amendment that we're about to vote on either way you want. You're going to be voting for this amendment. Okay, okay, well, I mean, we have a motion and a second on the table, so it's not like there's no motion and a second on the amendment, so it seems in order to me. Okay, so Lemuria, on this one specific Senator Augustine amendment language, we will just go around the horn and
Senator Kagan?
No.
Senator Kagan, no. Senator Augustine?
Yes.
Senator Augustine, yes. Senator Gallion?
Yes.
Senator Gallion, yes. Senator Watson?
Yes.
Senator Watson, yes. Senator Lewis Young?
No.
Senator Lewis Young, no. Senator Brooks?
Yeah.
Senator Brooks, yes. Senator Carozza was a yes. Senator Hester?
Yes.
Senator Hester, yes. Senator Washington?
Yes.
Senator Washington, yes. Senator Simonair?
Yes.
Senator Simonair, yes. Senator Feldman?
yes, the amendment carries.
Senator Feldman, yes.
Next turn to Senator Gallion, who wanted to raise a separate issue. And again, we don't have to be the same as the House. We can do whatever we want.
Let's hear it.
So my understanding is that in that version that kind of looking at possibly lining things up, it does not add that last minute change of raising the fee on the guides and outfitters. So I would like to strike that part that would raise that fee, because we didn't discuss that in the it wasn't discussed in the bill hearings. Maybe it was an oversight, but I think it should be left like it was in the original bill. So I'd like to strike that.
Okay, just on that issue, can we just clarify, April, when's the last time that fee was raised and where would this money go? Just so everybody kind of knows what we're talking about here. Do we know?
I don't know off the top of my head when it was last raised. I would have to look into that.
2004, okay. And this takes it from what to what, just so that we're kind of clear.
So this would take it from $300 for the waterfowl outfitter to $425. And for the waterfowl hunting guide, it would take it from $50 to $75.
Okay, and where does that money go?
I suspect it goes, I don't know off the top of my head.
Okay. Okay, just while we're pondering this issue, any other just questions? And maybe we could, if this is a sticking point, maybe we could put this to the end of the calendar if people think that's relevant information that everybody wants to know. I just want to make sure everybody has all the relevant information. Senator Simonair?
Yeah, this bill increases fees and I don't like to do that normally, but they made a strong case that it was in the eighties since they raised the fees and also that they would get a, I think, 3-to-1 match from the federal government, which would provide a lot of money for us. From what I understand, these separate fees were raised 20 years after the ones we're trying to do in the original bill. And additionally, that this is a business license opposed to a hunting license, so you would not get the federal match. So these seem like apples and oranges for what was presented at the bill hearing. I think that might be a bill for another year to make a case, because the case they made at the bill hearing doesn't apply with the matching and they get more money. It's a separate license. It's not a hunting license. And it's been updated much more soon than the previous fees. So I support Senator Gallion's amendment for those reasons. And I think it might be a good bill and a good discussion. Let people come in and discuss it.
Okay, any further discussion on this fee issue? Senator Hester?
Clarification. So this was not part of the original bill hearing.
Okay, just again, April, that was when we were talking about the 1980s, that was a separate license. Okay, right. And then Senator Gallion, you say this was, to your knowledge, 2004, which is 20 years ago. I mean, that is 20 years. So, I mean, well, it's not 40, but it's 20 years.
Could we
Yeah.
reiterate what his amendment would do?
Which the fee amendment?
Yeah, can we just?
Yeah, I think, okay, we'll go back to you, April, on just specifically what the amendment.
Right, the proposed, Senator Gallion's proposal is to leave the outfitter license fees where they are, not to change them.
300
the
rather than
changes.
425.
So yeah, 300 for the waterfowl outfitter and 75 for the, or sorry, 300 is the current for the waterfowl outfitter, 50 is for the waterfowl hunting guide.
Okay. Is there, I mean, do we have any sense of where those particular numbers came from? Like, is there a methodology as to, I mean, other than looking at 20 years and inflation numbers or something objective that you could kind of explain? Just, we don't know. Those are just numbers. Okay. Well, okay. I mean, let's, further discussion on this, again, it has been 20 years. But 3 to 425, and the other one was from what to what?
50 to 75.
50 to 75. I mean, $25 in 20 years. I mean, 20 years. Okay, well,
So
yeah. 125. Okay. Yeah, absolutely.
So it's my understanding they also pay a hunting license fee on top of the business license. Just to put that out there for the body.
So again, so we're clear, if we took the Gallion amendment, would that put us in exactly the same posture as the House bill?
I believe so.
Just so we at least have that on the table as well. Okay, yeah, sure.
I mean, we weren't given any compelling reason to raise these. There was nothing in the hearing. I haven't received any. They're different type of licenses. And it just seems like it was added on at I don't know the reason, but we weren't given any compelling reasons why to raise it by 50%. So again, if the body thinks it's a good idea, it's great, but I don't have any reasoning to do it.
Okay, anybody else want to weigh in on this one? We're down to one narrow issue at this point. Okay, well, we do have a motion on the table from Senator Gallion, and was there a second from Senator Simon Ayers? So let's just roll the dice, see where we are, and we're different from the House. We're a little bit. Anyway, let's just do it.
So, sorry, Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
just clarifying or Senator Gallion. With your amendment, it would stay 350 rather than go to 425 and 75.
Keeps the guides and outfitters rate at the same as was when we had the bill hearing.
350. I don't care.
Well,
So is that a yes?
everybody's on their own. Take a vote and we'll see how it rolls. And we don't have Senator Carrozza here, but just, do what you think. Now, again, put all that into the mix, what the House did, 20 years versus 40 years, rates, whatever. That's why you get paid the big bucks to make these tough calls.
I never abstain. I'm abstaining. I don't care.
Abstaining, you could have passed.
No, I'm not passing. I
Oh.
am abstaining. I'm abstaining.
Pressure on.
Oh, geez. Okay, well, that could be a problem.
Well, with amendment, you don't need 6 votes, you need a majority, correct?
That is true. It's a simple majority.
Yep.
Let's say, what does that mean? Let's vote. Well, we do. She abstained.
Oh, she didn't call my name.
Oh, right.
Senator Kagan,
Abstain.
Senator Augustine,
Yes.
Senator Gallion,
Yes.
I'm sorry, Senator Gallion, yes. Senator Augustine was a yes. Senator Watson,
Yes.
Senator Watson, yes. Senator Louis Young,
No.
Senator Louis Young, no. Senator Brooks,
Yes.
Senator Brooks, yes. Senator Hester, Senator Hester, yes. Senator Washington,
No.
Senator Washington, no. Senator Simoneau,
Yes.
Senator Simoneau, yes, and Senator Feldman.
Yes, so we are now aligned with the
Yes.
House product. Next, we've got the bill as amended on the table now in front of us, 327.
There's
Oh, there's,
Hester's amendment.
oh, I apologize.
It's back out of the line.
I apologize. You want to take us back out of alignment, Senator Hester's?
Well, I was wondering if since DNR is doing a study anyways, if we might just ask that they look at this stuff too. I mean, that way we're send them a letter. Could we do that?
We can do anything we want. A letter sounds really good.
Awesome. I'll even write it for you. All you have to do is sign
Okay,
it.
I like that idea.
Thank you so
Why
much.
don't we go with that option? We have a bill as amended in its current form on the table. Is there a motion from Sarah Augustine? Second from somebody here, Senator Hester. Okay, yes, Senator Simoneau.
Is the bill amended or is it unamended now?
Well, it's still amended. It's still amended.
It's amended back.
To be adopted, right? Well,
We have retained the parts of the Elfreth Amendment that take out the authorization for Sunday hunting
Okay.
of migratory
and
waterfowl
we're gonna call it an
and
amendment.
add the farm
Yep.
crop. farm-
Okay, does everybody
Sure.
understand all that? Okay, here, we'll do a quick roll call on this one now. As amended, 327.
All right, Senator Kagan.
Aye.
Senator Kagan, yes. Senator Augustine.
Yes.
Senator Augustine, yes. Senator Gallion.
Yes.
Senator Gallion, yes. Senator Watson.
Yes.
Senator Watson, yes. Senator Louis Young.
No.
Senator Louis Young, no. Senator Brooks.
Yes.
Senator Brooks, yes. Senator Hester.
Yes.
Senator Hester, yes. Senator Washington.
Yes.
Senator Washington, yes. Senator Simoneau. Senator Simoneau, yes. Senator Feldman.
Yes.
Okay,
Senator
that bill
Feldman.
carries. Next up, I said earlier, Senator Bailey's Bill 422, which we had on the voting list last time, was held by Senator Simoneau. So you want to, let's go re-explain it and then.
Senate Bill 422, this bill establishes a Black Bass Conservation Fund in the Department of Natural Resources consisting of voluntary monetary donations made by individuals at the time of purchasing a recreational fishing license. The fund is to be used for black bass stocking, habitat enhancement, tournaments, and conservation research. There are no amendments, but just as a reminder, in the written testimony, the department did suggest that the fund should be added to the list of funds under the state finance and procurement article where the interest accrues to the special fund and not to the general fund.
Okay, Senator Simoneau, you held it. You, I think subsequently have had some conversations with DNR and you're good to go. So with that, any other questions or discussion on Senate Bill 422? Yes, Vice Chair Kagan.
What Ms. Morton just said about the funds accruing, the interest accruing to the funds, it does seem to make sense unless Senator Simoneau or others think that general fund is the better way to go. Traditionally, we do send them, have interest accrue to the fund, the special fund.
It depends on the fund.
Okay, I'm not fighting that battle then.
Okay.
Fine, leave it as it
Any,
is. Thank you.
Any further discussion? All in favor of Senate Bill 422, raise your hand. All opposed, 422 carries. Next up, 429, Alexis.
Senate Bill 429, Business Regulation Home Improvement Commission Award Limits. This bill increases the maximum amount authorized for total payout across all claims from the Home Improvement Guarantee Fund from $100,000 to $200,000. in the event of an act or omission of a single contractor. This bill also requires a corresponding reimbursement from the Home Improvement Guarantee Fund of $200,000 before any additional amount can be paid out to a claimant. There are sponsor amendments, which do the following. They increase the total payout cap from $200,000 as drafted to $250,000. Increases from $250,000 to $1 million, the dollar value at which the fund must remain in order to avoid submitting a report to, as amended, it's EEE. So I would suggest a technical amendment to EEE and Economic Matters Committee detailing actions taken to bring the fund balance to the level that it is required to remain.
Okay, any questions about the bill, the amendments as described? And just refresh everybody's memory, this particular Home Improvement Commission, remind everybody what that commission does and what its function is. I think that would be helpful.
So they regulate contractors that are involved in home improvement work, the licensing and the restoration and oversight of the fund, which is responsible for the payments for individuals who have been aggrieved by a claimant for faulty work.
Right, so certain bad actors, this fund is in place. In any event, any further discussion on this bill before we take a vote on the amendments?
And the technical one, if I may add that one. too.
Okay, and we'll include can we include the technical
Yes.
amendments in the vote? Okay, all in favor of the amendments to 429, raise your hand. Raising the limits, all opposed, amendments carry. We've got 429 as amended. Is there a motion? Senator Gallion, second by Vice Chair Kagan. All in favor, Senate Bill 429 as amended, raise your hand. Okay, carries. Senate Bill 611, April.
Senate Bill 611, Office of the Attorney General, Environment and Natural Resources Monitoring Unit Establishment. This bill establishes an Environmental and Natural Resources Monitoring Unit in the Office of the Attorney General to, among other things, investigate and prosecute criminal cases and assist the Maryland Department of the Environment and the Department of Natural Resources at their request with investigating or bringing civil actions. There are amendments in your voting packet. The amendments appear on page 24. The reprint starts on page 26. So amendment number 753820/1 from Senator Bailey. The amendment renames the unit to be the Environmental and Natural Resources Crimes Unit, strikes language authorizing the unit to assist with the investigation or bringing of civil actions, strikes language dealing with environmental monitoring, alters staffing of the unit to include assistant attorney generals, investigators, and administrators as provided in the state budget, and limits the responsibility of the unit to investigating and prosecuting the state's criminal, environmental, and natural resources laws. The amendment also adds subpoena authority for the unit related to those criminal investigations and prosecutions.
Okay, any questions on about those amendments or the underlying bill? Yes, Senator Simoner.
What is the scope of the environmental investigations?
So this would be in relation to anywhere in the law where we have a criminal penalty associated with either a natural resources law or an environmental law.
You have a couple examples and
I mean, there's some, for example, I can think of off the top of my head, poaching, oyster poaching and things like that appear in the natural resources law. I mean, there
the
are
environmental side, what?
there are things that are criminal misdemeanors. I would have to do a search, but
I thought I heard during the testimony, doesn't the AG already have a environmental group that goes after this stuff?
so they have, I believe the testimony was some sort of kind of monitoring piece. The issue is, or the current practice right now is if any of these sort of investigations kind of or preliminary processes rise to the level of potentially criminal activity, that has to then go to a state's attorney to prosecute.
Any further questions about the bill, the amendments? Okay, yeah, that's
Time. So
absolutely.
if this bill were not to pass, who, who is going after these bad actors? Who's the enforcement?
Right now is if there has been some sort of violation, I mean, it always starts with the department, right? The Department of the Environment or the Department of Natural Resources are doing a lot of the sort of preliminary are going to be the first to sort of find out about it and do some sort of investigation. But ultimately that has to be turned over to a state's attorney to bring the prosecution. Because right now the Attorney General and the state, MDE and DNR don't have the ability to themselves bring a criminal case.
Right now, it would be through the state's attorneys.
Correct.
So we had a bill, and I'm trying to be consistent, okay? We had a bill earlier in session that took away some stuff from the state's attorneys and gave more power to the Attorney General. So I guess you could say this bill would kind of be in the same vein then, right?
It is a similar concept.
The only thing I would add, and as I recall, the debate, whether to the extent there was one, in that case, it was the Attorney General asking for the power. I think debate was talking about power grab. This, I think, the impetus for this comes from the departments saying that they think the AG should have this unit as opposed to having to deal with state's attorney. So I don't know if that's relevant here, but I think in terms of what the genesis of why this came about is sort of not the same at all. But I hear your broader point. Any further? Yes, Senator Simonaire.
I'm just trying to see real quick. You're saying the departments, did they write a letter of support for this bill?
Let's go to April on that one.
It's just a letter of information.
Well, although sometimes letters of information tell you, I mean, that in and of itself doesn't mean that's where it came from. Maybe we could just,
I can pull it
let's
up.
take a quick look at that, kind of to the point I was trying to make it. It's either corroborated by, by that letter or not. So that, why don't we just take a quick review before we do anything here? And again, that may not change your view, but it is a slightly different take.
The department it says this is the letter. The department is supportive of this general concept. The department currently works with the environmental crimes unit. So there is an environmental crimes unit at the Office of the Attorney General on some complex and multi-jurisdictional criminal natural resources cases. Having additional attorney support to expand the capacity to assist with such cases would be helpful. The department also recognizes the potential benefit of staff attorneys who could assist the department in the initial development, investigation, and overall support for important wildlife and fisheries crimes. A team of in-house attorneys with expertise on hunting and fishing violations and underlying ecological or social purposes could be beneficial to the department. The bill discusses this new unit as assisting with policy and legal advice. I will say Bailey's amendments strike those provisions. Eliminating the reference to the new unit providing policy advice or specifying that the advice provided by the new unit would be confined to enforcement policy linked to improving prosecution is preferred.
Okay, that says letter of information. I hear that to mean could it just as easily have been a letter of support, but that said, any further discussion before we take a vote on the amendments or the underlying bill? Senator Hester.
I'm sorry, I'm still trying to understand what the original bill did and then what the amendments now do. Does it change it dramatically, April? And if so, is this to address the comments of DNR?
So yes, it is to address the comments of DNR. It sort of narrows the scope of what this unit is really tasked with doing. First of all, it strikes the provisions. The original bill said that this unit could also be helping with civil cases, takes that out. It's limiting it strictly to the criminal enforcement actions. And then it also takes out the original bill sort of implied some environmental monitoring responsibilities and also had that part about advising on legal and policy issues that comes out. So again, it's really sort of narrowed the scope of what this unit does to criminal prosecutions
And that's
and
what the DNR
investigations
that's what the
with the
DNR
amendments,
Okay.
yes.
Any other questions, discussion before we, any motion on the table on this one? Okay, there's a motion favorable. Is there a second? Second, Senator Kagan. So you have reservations, you can vote no. That's how it works here. Okay, Lemuria, we'll take it around. Yes, absolutely. Senator Augustine, before we take a vote.
I'm assuming that we got the sign off on this from budget and tax.
I don't even know.
Put it on their list, but I just found that this would be on a list today, so I haven't gotten the official sign off.
Okay, so April informs me we haven't had the final sign off. Do we? Okay, well, I would suggest we take a vote. But you know, and if it passes, then we don't maybe report it out unless until we got a sign off. And if we don't get it, then the bill maybe never hits the floor. But let's see the outcome. If the bill goes down, that's a moot point. So, okay, everybody understand that? Okay,
Separate question on that.
sure.
I just want to ask in April, since it has this in there, is this now may language or is this all shall language in here? Since we've made those changes to these things?
I think this is still a shall, but let me double check on that. Yeah, no, this is a shall. This establishes the unit. Well, it establishes, it expands the unit and requires them to investigate and prosecute the state's criminal, environmental, and natural resources crimes.
Okay, any additional questions before we go around the horn? Okay, got the amendments first. Any discussion on the amendments? Okay, all in favor of the amendments, not the bill, but the amendments, raise your hand. All opposed, the amendments carry. Now let's discuss Senate Bill 611 as amended. Is there a motion from Senator Washington on the bill as amended? Second, Senator Kagan. Okay, let's see where we land on the vote. Lemuria?
All right, Senator Kagan,
Aye.
Senator Kagan, yes. Senator Augustine,
Yes.
Senator Augustine, yes. Senator Gallion,
No.
Senator Gallion, no. Senator Watson, no. Senator Lewis Young,
Yes.
Senator Lewis Young, yes. Senator Brooks,
Yes.
Senator Brooks, yes. Senator Carozza,
No.
Senator Carozza, no. Senator Hester, Senator Hester, yes. Senator Washington,
Yes.
Senator Washington, yes. Senator Simonaire, Senator Simonaire, no. Senator Feldman,
Yes.
Senator Feldman, yes.
Bill
Senator
carries.
Ford.
We're gonna next go to Senator Bailey again. Senate Bill
639.
639.
Senate Bill 639, Historic St. Mary's City Commission Reform Act of 2023. This bill modifies the membership of the Historic St. Mary's City Commission by adding and removing voting members, by modifying the frequency of the meetings, by requiring the development and publication of written policies on operating procedures, and the development of a comprehensive maintenance plan, requires operating agreements that have been entered into between the commission and nonprofits or state government units to be in writing, approved by the Attorney General for legal sufficiency, reviewed by the commission annually and limited to 3 years. The bill establishes policies for collaboration with the Historic St. Mary's Foundation, including state ethics guidelines in the event an individual is employed both by the commission and Historic St. Mary's Foundation. It requires an annual report to the governor, the State Ethics Commission, and the Legislative Policy Committee on public ethics policies that are established. The bill subjects the St. Mary's City Fund, which operates and funds the St. Mary's city commission to be subject to an audit by the Office of Legislative Audits, and requires a report on progress and remediating factors raised in a prior audit by December 31st, 2023. Sponsor amendments do four things. First, they add a representative from the Native American community to the commission to be appointed by the governor. Requires agreed upon services that are provided to St. Mary's College to be in accordance with the college's policies and procedures. Clarifies that the 3-year terms on written agreements may be renewed indefinitely, but the length of each contract is limited to 3 years. It applies policies and public ethics guidelines to affiliated nonprofit organizations instead of Historic St. Mary's Foundation solely, so it contemplates other organizations collaborating with the commission. I would also, this isn't mentioned, but since there is the modification of contracts, I would recommend intent language to make sure we don't run afoul of the Constitution. So it essentially would read in Section 2, we would change that effective date to Section 3. Or read and be it further enacted that a presently existing obligation or contract right may not be impaired in any way by this act. So maybe two separate considerations there.
Okay, any questions for Alexis on those amendments? Yes, Vice Chair Kagan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm totally, these are in the weeds questions,
Okay.
one substantive and one's page 2 after line 14,
Bill?
reprint.
Okay.
Page 31 of our reprint of our packet.
Okay.
One shall be a representative of the Native American community appointed in consultation with the Maryland Commission on Indian Affairs. It's possible that this just doesn't go back in the code far enough. Appointed by whom in consultation with?
Appointed by the governor with the
The
advice
governor.
and consent
Thank
of
you,
the
because
Senate.
that part wasn't included. So I just wanted to, that's what I assumed. Thank you. And then the other question I have on page 34 of the reprint. The section on 20 lines 26 through 34. Can you just explain, please, lines 32 through 34? Fleet management and property management, including rental tenant waiting lists?
So fleet management to me sounds like transportation, trucks. Property management may be a little different. I would probably just going based off of my general understanding, if they're entering into any type of lease, those policies would have to incorporate the property managers implicated in that lease. And if there are tenants that are on the waiting list of those leases, but going beyond that, I don't have a lot of additional context to discern what else that could be describing.
Okay, it just, they didn't fit into the rest of the bill as for a commission, Historic St. Mary's Commission on rental waiting list, tenant waiting list. It just seemed a little odd.
So because they're entering into agreements with other entities possibly. So if they are signing, if they're the signatory of any type of contract, that would be sort of what we're talking about or dealing with here.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay, additional questions for Alexis on just on the amendments and or the underlying bill? Okay, anyone who move the amendments? Okay, Senator Carozza, is there a second? Senator Hester, all in favor of the amendments, raise your hand. All opposed, amendments carry. We have before us the bill as amended, Senate Bill 639. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, all in favor of 639 as amended, raise your hand. Okay, that bill carries. Before we go to the next bill, I see at the bottom, we do have 2 withdrawals. We take that as a consent calendar to accept the 2 withdrawals, 868 and 490.
Maybe unfavorable.
Okay, got an unfavorable motion. Is there a second? A withdrawn unfavorable. Okay, second. All in favor of those 2 bills being accepted as withdrawn / unfavorable. Back to Senate Bill 783. Alexis. Senator
Right.
Hester's bill.
Senate Bill 783, Historic Properties Disposition and Preservation Team, an extension of the income tax credit for catalytic revitalization projects. If passed, this will go up to budget and tax as a secondary. This bill establishes a historic properties disposition and preservation team within the Department of Housing and Community Development for the purpose of ensuring that historic state-owned properties due for disposition and redevelopment and reuse as well, are managed successfully. The team includes secretaries under several state departments, and the team is required to implement provisions of a steering committee report on the reuse of historic properties. That was provided for us at the hearing, in case folks need a reminder of that. The bill requires the maintenance of information on historic properties owned by the state. Bill requires the team to evaluate environmental and zoning factors prior to disposition, as well as the facilitation of site and building assessments. The bill requires consultations to conform with laws prescribing the use of excess real property for affordable housing, which was passed by this committee last year. The bill requires a report by December 1st, 2024 on the activities of the team and recommended legislation, as well as a summary by the same date of eligible state-owned historic properties that are eligible for disposition. And finally, the bill extends a catalytic revitalization tax credit for 4 years. The amendment significantly pared down everything that I just read. So they removed the team as established, the functions and the roles of the team. And instead of endowing the team with the responsibility of ensuring that these properties are disposed of successfully, requires a smart growth sub-cabinet to issue a report by December 31st, 2023 on a plan for the preservation and reuse of historic complexes generally. It authorizes the tax credit to last for 5 years from the date of issuance of their certificate instead of 5 years from the date of completion of the rehabilitation project. It authorizes the Secretary of the Department of Housing and Community Development to issue multiple final tax credit certificates if the projects are to be completed in phases, if one of the phases has already been completed, and if the tax credit issue does not exceed 20% of the expenses incurred by the entity or the developer responsible for the development or redevelopment. And the amendments retain the 4-year tax credit extension under the revitalization tax credit.
Okay, Senator Hester.
Thank you. So there's really two pieces to this bill. There is the extension of this tax credit and there is the team, and both were recommendations of this report. The team was supposed to go forward with the Secretary of Planning and the Secretary of the Department of Housing and Community Development, the previous secretaries. So I met with both the secretaries. They really wanted a chance to think about this team, for a year before going forward. So that is why I struck the whole team to give them deference and time to get used to, what their new jobs. However, it's still very important that we extend the tax credit because it's important to these large projects that we have so far, like Crownsville, Springsfield Hospital, Fort Ritchie out in Western Maryland. And so I would like to move the amendments.
Okay, we have a motion second. Any discussion on these amendments? Okay, seeing none, all in favor of these amendments, raise your hand. All opposed, amendments carry. Got the bill 783 as amended in front of us. Is there a motion? Okay, second, Senator Gallion. All in favor, Senate Bill 783 is amended. Raise your hand. That bill carries, which brings us to our final bill of the day, Senator Simonaire, Senate Bill 910. Alexis.
Senate Bill 910, Maryland Veteran Service Animal Program Definitions, Therapy Horse. This bill modifies the definition of therapy horse to exclude the requirement that a stable be licensed by a member center that is, quote, premier accredited for purposes of the Maryland Veteran Services Animal Program. There was no opposition and no amendments to the bill.
Any discussion? Anything you want to add, Senator Simonaire? Okay, is there a motion? Second from Senator Gallion. All in favor, Senate Bill 910, raise your hand. All opposed, Senate Bill 910 carries. That concludes our work for today. We are sending 8 more bills to the and see everybody at 5.